And we are live! Hello everyone, how you doing? I am excited to talk to you about what we've been working on Cities of Venus. If you didn't check out our last update where I did a box opening of a reviewer copy, check that out. Simply go to our YouTube page, you'll find it there. Maybe I'll put a link to that as well. But I thought I'd give you guys an update as to what's changed and what we've been working on since. So, for starters, we had talked about these player boards, which look super dope. We absolutely love them, but the concern was they were too thin. Working back and forth with the manufacturer, we are producing new boards, and those boards should be ready hopefully this week. We're trying to get these reviewer copies done to get them to the reviewers at least a month before our campaign goes live in May. It's going to be a nail biter, but I think we can do it. But it was well worth a discussion back and forth with the plant because we need to get closer to this kind of thickness of board. This was what we did on Nutty Squirrels of the Oakwood Forest. And you can see that this board, which is 4 layers, this board is only like 3 layers. It's going to be way thicker. So it's going to be nice and straight and flat like this one. And it'll be 4 layers. So it'll even be thicker than this board. So that's update number 1. The function of the boards in terms of how they slide in and out and all that functionality, really cool, works really well. But again, want to get those thicker. Also, they were curved because they got crammed in the box because these were slightly longer than the box itself, which one might say, well, how is that possible? Or at the plant, are they not looking at a board and putting it in the box? But because they're consolidators, they'll pull in things from different factories around them. They're often going by spec. And you have to remind them, hey, can you please put everything in the box? In fact, we just did that with these extra thick boards. They said, yep, we're ready to go. We're going to send them off to print. And I said, just so I can sleep better at night, can you please do me a favor? Can you take that board and put it in the box and send me a picture? Show me that it fits in the box. Lo and behold, it came back and said, oh, we need to reduce the size a little bit more. So again, it wasn't going to fit in the box. So that was something we had to double check on and make sure it was right. The next thing that we talked about on my last update was the super awesome resource bowls, which will be that are rocket shaped. And we made a couple tweaks. In these bowls, we had like kind of like the rocket window you would have. If I hold it up like this, imagine there being like a little window right there. That's lost the meeple. It wasn't practical when we were using them. The meeples were getting kind of stuck kind of on this curve. So we flattened the bottom of this bowl. We also made, man down somewhere here. We also made this bowl thicker. So in the last video, it was about half is deep. So we made this much deeper so it can hold a full bag of meeples. And then the other change we made was, as we continue to play through, I always knew that the 150 meeples would be a little tight in terms of, the amount of meeples you would need. 95% of all games, 150 meeples is more than enough. But there is going to be some games where everybody's just absolutely rocking and have amazing built up tableaus. Their ships are going to be well stocked with people. In those cases, we run the risk that we could run out of people. So increased cost, but we're going to go to 200 little meeples, little space people that are going to be these V-Nauts in every game. There's going to be 200 of these guys, which we're super excited about. So increased cost, but we want to make sure we do the game right. And, if there's a little bit extra cost, but that gives the people everything they need and more, that puts us in a good spot. So that's update number 2. The other thing we were working on was these volcano bowls that we were talking about. We had this long kind of volcano. When we got from the 3D printer, the holes were like this big on each in the 3 spots in the volcano. It clearly couldn't hold all the gems that we need to hold. So what we end up doing is kind of going back to the drawing board and rethinking it as a whole. And where we ended up was these. So I'm going to pull one out here. These are 3D printed. These will be thermoformed in the actual game. But the idea of having actual 3 separate volcanoes that you can put around the table wherever you want. 6-player game will actually have 6 of these. But they hold the gems just perfectly. Easy to access the gems out of the bowl. They look fantastic on the table. I mean, it looks awesome. And we're so excited with that. So that will now be in each of the games. That's another update we made. The thermal form, or the, I'm going to show this one more time, the neoprene mat stitched. Very, very happy with this. Where it ended up. That's going to be standard in every game. And then the last thing we noticed when we did that box opening was, I don't know if I can't remember if I pointed it out or not, but I certainly noticed it, was on the back of these cards. And of course we would fix this for the final game, but for me, the reviewer copies, where the reviewers are going to do video, they're going to do photography, it's got to look just right. And the one thing that kind of bothered me that the factory, again, as you move quickly, as we tried to avoid Chinese New Year, that they did, that was an error on their part, was they printed these cards. I'll show you them right here. So if I look at the one in the, so this is phase 1 and phase 3. Now, if you look at phase 2, if I put this up here as well, phase 2 is extra thick. Like the line around this 2 is like super thick. We call that a stroke. That can happen when you shrink artwork down. So we often send these pieces in large art boards so that they're at maximum resolution. When they shrink it down, if they don't click a button that says scale everything accordingly, that stroke won't scale properly, and you end up in a case like this where you have an extra thick 2. So we're reprinting those for the reviewer copies so that it'll match the 1 and the 3. Lastly, one thing we caught after our last update, and it's just with a playthrough with some friends, it's one of those things where you kind of become what we call copy blind. And this is where, if you're reading an essay, for instance, say you've got a friend or a kid that has an essay, and you're reading the essay, and there's typos all the way through it, and you say to the person, "Didn't you read this?" And they say, "Yeah, I read it. I proofread it. Had other people look at it." But your brain will fill in the details, right? Your brain will actually make you see things that aren't there and fill in the details like everything is fine. And that's why humans are so efficient at reading and things like that. We noticed, and it was a colleague of mine that brought this up, said, "I'm a little confused where this card goes. It's supposed to go up here." I go, no. That card goes down in the mining department. And he's like, "Yeah, but the symbol at the top says mechanical." And as soon as I saw that, I was like, holy smokes. This is something that I had looked at this card 100 times. Several people looked at this card 100 times. Many people played this game without even cluing in, because these are people that have been playing it over and over and over again without cluing into this card here, and end up putting a sticker over it just for my own copy here. But that card was printed with a mechanic symbol, and it should have been a mining symbol, which can cause a lot of confusion. Obviously, that'd be something we'd fix for the final game, but is also with the reviewers, what I don't want is reviewers are often going to read something really quickly and try to get it on the table, get the content created, and get on to the next game. So if there's something in there that is not intuitive or is wrong and can cause confusion, often that will then reflect in the video, right? They don't know that there's an error there. So that's something that we had reprinted as well. Again, lesson learned, you eat the cost of those errors. But for me, I want to make sure that this is just right before we go to the reviewers. Where are we right now in the process? So I am going back and forth with our manufacturer. We keep having these debates back and forth where I want these made out of a thermoform tray. They keep saying, well, that's a new mold. I'm like, no, make one big mold and just cut them. And they're like, no, that's 3 different molds we put together into that one big mold. So we have this tete-a-tete going back and forth. Hopefully will be resolved this week. But my goal is for the reviewer copies is that we're actually sending the volcanoes and the rocket tray with those games. Because the timing is getting tight, initially I would send these by container to the States and then kind of spread out from there. We're likely going to have to pick, say, our top 20 reviewers and content creators and send them the games direct from China in order to give them enough time to create their content for our page. I really don't want to push this campaign back past the May 2nd date that we have. That's a really good timing. Once you get into June, we're into summertime, we're into conventions and things like that. we're gonna hit May 2nd. We're gonna make May 2nd work. So stay tuned for that. We're still on track for May 2nd. Reviewers are probably gonna get their games in beginning of April. I'm thinking maybe even the end of March. We might get lucky. We're gonna see. So that's kind of Cities of Venus update. Other things we've been working on, Catnip Auction House. This is another thing where we've got these. I'm trying to get the cost down. We really wanted to do these kind of wood tokens for the catnip that you put in the bowl when it's going around and you're placing your bid. It's just not feasible with the number of tokens we need in this game because we want to make it a 10-player game. It just pushed the cost way too high, and I don't want to reflect that in an MSRP. I want this game to be affordable, a fun party game that people can afford to buy, and we're going to do a small 1,000 copy run and go straight to retail with that. So what we decided to do as a happy compromise is like we do with Nutty Squirrels the Oakwood Forest, we are going to do cubes. So the catnip will be green acrylic, so green plastic cubes, which will represent your catnip when you're doing your bidding. You'll still get the effect of, and this is why we're trying to do these wood tokens, is when you throw the token into the bowl, you hear that kind of like that tinking sound, like tick, tick, as it hits the bowl. So it sounds like there's kind of money going into the bowl as people are passing this bowl around and placing their bids. Our belief is you're going to have the same effect if with a plastic cube. So that's why we're going to do the plastic cube. So that's Catnip Auction House. We've also been working on Survivors of Venus. So you might say, well, what's Survivors of Venus? It's the sequel to Cities of Venus. And so you might say to yourself, well, why are you working on a sequel to Cities of Venus? You haven't even launched Cities of Venus. And that's true. But we've got a lot of hopes for this franchise and this world that we're creating. And Cities of Venus has been a few years in the making already. So we're at the point where we're getting ready to actually launch it. But the game itself is a complete game. It takes a long time to put games together. And right now we're on track. We launch in May. I can see probably in the fall of 2024, maybe coming with the sequel to Cities of Venus at that point. And so that's a year and a half from now. So in order to get ready for that, I mean, we got to get that legwork done now, right? It's got to be done now. So we're going to get it done. And there's Tanner Yarrow. How's it going, buddy? So yeah, that's what the plan is to do. So we have Cities of Venus. We're gonna have Survivors of Venus. As part of Survivors of Venus, we may have an add-on which will be a roll and write, and that will be Architects of Venus. So it'll be one's gonna be sequel, and then potentially as part of that campaign, we'll also have the prequel, which is a roll and write, which is the designing of the first kind of establishment of these cities, and the architects actually building the cities themselves, empowering them through a roll and write. So that's kind of what we've got planned and what we're teasing out right now. But in the interim, if you haven't followed the campaign yet, I'm putting a link in the show notes. Please go and give me a follow on our Kickstarter page. It helps with the algorithms big time. We're almost at 500 as it is. And if you can't find it on Kickstarter with the Kickstarter link here, go to citiesofvenus.com. There's a direct link there as well to our Kickstarter page. Thanks in advance for all of your support and the people that are already following us and cheering us on. There's a lot of excitement around this game. I know a lot of people are really pumped about it. We're pumped as well, as you can see in our excitement. And I'm going to continue to come with you guys with some updates. The next update I'm probably going to do maybe in 3-4 weeks, where I'll show the thicker boards when we get them. Anyway, guys, all the best to you. Have a great day. And don't forget to follow. Cheers. This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.